Union Minister of State for External Affairs, Kirti Vardhan Singh, announced today that 8 Indian nationals who were rescued from the capsized oil tanker MV Prestige Falcon have reached shore and are currently being cared for. Tragically, the body of one Indian crew member has been recovered, and the Indian government is closely monitoring the situation and ensuring all possible assistance for the affected families. The Indian Navy's warship INS Teg is spearheading a critical search and rescue operation off the coast of Oman since the MV Prestige Falcon capsized on the 15th of July. As of now, the rescue mission was successfully recovered and has recovered 9 crew members from the stricken vessel, including 8 Indians and 1 Sri Lankan national. The operation continues as the Navy and Omani authorities work to locate the remaining missing crew members. Following the capsizing of the MV Prestige Falcon, which occurred about 25 nautical miles southeast of the Ras Madrak, Oman, the Indian Navy swiftly launched a search and rescue mission. Advanced equipment and personnel were deployed to locate and assist the crew stranded in the treacherous waters. We'll talk about this with our guest. Joining us on the show is Ambassador Bhaspati Mukherjee, former diplomat. Commodore Anil Jay Singh, former Navy officer, also joins us on the show. Professor Dr. Sandeep Tripathi, foreign affairs expert, with us on the show as well. Last but by no means the least, Professor Madhav Nalapat, editorial director of the Sunday Guardian, also joins us on the program. Professor Nalapat, appreciate you being here, sir. This is obviously India's maritime and naval prowess at display. And the fact of the matter is, sir, that the Indian Navy, be it this accident or be it some of the other threats that have come in the seas via terrorists and pirates, the Indian Navy has come of age, and the Indian government has been encouraging this role very robustly. And it also appears that we have taken it upon it ourselves, to bring back these people as safely as possible. And this is a perfect precedent of that particular promise that the Navy, in fact, and the government has taken up upon itself.
You're quite right, Vineet. And may I say that where the Indo-Pacific is concerned, the Navy is by far the most important service. There's no question about that. The Navy and the Coast Guard. And where the Indian Navy is concerned, it has been carrying out what has been encouraged under Prime Minister Modi, which is basically defense-related diplomacy. Now, in which the defense forces are also engaged in Good Samaritan efforts and in other efforts, security efforts. So that promotes better ties with different countries. We definitely have better ties with countries with which we have done naval exercises, much better ties. And this is an example of Prime Minister Modi's strategy of using defense and the defense forces in a diplomatic manner. As far as Oman is concerned, it's an extremely important country. It is very, very important from the point of view of the GCC. It's extremely important from the point of view of India, because it is right there, on the Arabian Sea. And a friendly Oman is extremely important for India. And now Oman, there has been a change of leadership because of the tragic passage of Sheikh Qaboos. And now we have a modern, new leader who has come and who is definitely, I'm certain, going to be India-friendly. There is a very large Indian diaspora in Oman, and the diaspora is very welcome. So I think the Navy getting active, it would definitely have happened after discussions with the Omani government, and also Indian nationals were involved. I think Indian nationals who are working abroad anywhere will be heartened by this kind of news, because under Prime Minister Modi, right from Modi 1.0, Indian nationals working or traveling anywhere abroad, the Indian missions give them very great help in case of emergencies. That has been very, very marked, and this is only the latest example. And I must say, Vineet, I must compliment the Indian Navy for the excellent work it has put in this particular rescue mission, which I'm certain will continue. And it's also a sign of the increasing capability of the defense forces under Modi 2.0 and Modi 3.0. to conduct these missions. So overall, it's a big success for our Navy, something that which all the services can be proud of, and we in India, as Indian citizens, can be proud of.
Valid points, valid points. Ambassador Mukherjee, how would you respond to what Professor Nalapat has said, that India is, of course, with the help of its Navy, cementing this image and this role, rather this avatar of being, not only the first responder, but a responsible country which is, looking to save lives with the help of renewed relationships with countries such as Oman?
Well, I was hearing Professor Nalapat and recalling my late uncle, Admiral Subimal Mukherjee, who used to say that the priorities of the government at that time, before Modi 1, 2, and 3, were focused on other branches of the armed forces and not on the Navy. But that has been rectified. And today, the Navy is getting the support that it requires. And for the first time, the strategic thinkers in India understand that India's oceans and India's oceanic outreach needs the same amount of resources and strength as do our armed forces elsewhere, confronting our enemies on land, across the LOC, etc. In addition, the Navy has an excellent reputation for search and rescue operations. In this particular case, for instance, the seas of Oman are extremely treacherous, that they've been able to rescue eight, I'm told, Indian nationals and one Sri Lankan national, if I'm not mistaken, makes my heart swell with pride. And they were very quick, because apparently this happened on the night of the 15th. And we are already in a situation where we have been able to find the crew. So this also shows the commitment of the Indian government and of its armed forces to help Indian nationals wherever they are stranded. And let me add, Vineet, because this may not be known to many Indians who are listening to us, that our armed forces also rescue nationals of neighboring countries, regardless of their hostility, their government's hostility to India. For instance, when the first conflict broke out in Ukraine, we rescued Pakistani students, etc. We never distinguished between them and us on the grounds of bilateral relations. We regarded them as neighbors who need to be rescued. In this particular case, we've rescued a Sri Lankan. I'm not sure we will be rescuing more, I'm sure. So this is again something to be proud of. And I would like to underline that this also shows our growing strength in the Indo-Pacific, and it also is a clear signal to countries like China, which regard themselves as continental powers but not oceanic powers, that India today has strength and outreach in the Indian Ocean and the Indo-Pacific through her navy and the joint operations we conduct through Quad, etc., and that we are just going from strength to strength as far as the Indian Navy is concerned. Vineet.
Right, valid points there, ma'am. And of course, the Indian Navy, like both of you said, is making an example of how to respond to these situations. And Commodore Singh, for the knowledge and the awareness of our viewers as well as the other panelists, what are some of the finer nuances? Have you been able to identify that separate the Indian Navy, especially from the rest of the world, because of these sporadic operations that we have been successfully and very vehemently taking part in?
The Indian Navy has always conducted itself with great alacrity and agility whenever there's been a natural disaster or an accident at sea. Every life is precious at sea. Every Navy in the vicinity of an accident at sea will rush to that scene to try and rescue every single person and will continue to search for people till it is more or less firmly established that there are no more survivors. I think in this case, this tanker capsized because the seas were very choppy, the weather was very rough. So you can imagine that if a ship the size of a tanker can capsize in a choppy sea, you can imagine how choppy the sea must have been. And under those circumstances, a warship which is much smaller, much narrower, is able to go into the same area, probably have to launch its helicopter to look for survivors, perhaps have to lower people over the side to rescue people and get them on board. There was a PATI in the air through bad weather, rain, stormy weather, everything. So I think it's not just a plain and simple search and rescue mission. It shows great courage and great confidence in our own ability, our professionalism, and our commitment to what we are supposed to do. And it is for this reason that the Indian Navy today is the preferred security provider and the first responder in any crisis in the Indian Ocean region and even in the larger Indo-Pacific. Now, when the Indian Navy began this multi-mission deployment pattern of its strategy, which it has almost 12 to 15 warships at any given time patrolling somewhere in the Indian Ocean or the Indo-Pacific. So it is more or less always, whenever an incident happens at sea, there is an Indian naval ship somewhere in the vicinity which can be directed to provide succor and relief. We've done it through cyclones, through hurricanes, through search and rescue missions. The recent piracy incidents, just across the Red Sea, in the Bab el-Mandeb and the Pacific Ocean, Indian Ocean, were a clear indication of how committed the Indian Navy is. And I think it speaks volumes for the, we operate with constraints. It's not that the Indian Navy is, notwithstanding the fact that a lot of attention is being paid to the maritime domain, the Navy is still operating with constraints. We don't have unlimited budgets. We don't have, brand new warships all the time. We have a challenge in maintaining them. The Indian Navy has been maintaining an operational tempo over the last decade or so, which is unprecedented. It's not only about the ships, it's about maintaining them, it's about supporting them, it's about ensuring that they're able to fulfill every role and mission that they are sent into. So I think this particular rescue mission, which it has undertaken of this Omani tanker, while it will definitely it will definitely bring appreciation from Oman for the Indian Navy, but the Indian Navy was doing what it's supposed to do. Search and rescue is an integral part of every Navy's role and mission. And I think if we do a good job of it, we get a lot of plaudits for that from everywhere. If you remember 2004 tsunami, that was actually the start point of the Indian Navy's credentials as a first responder and a preferred security partner. Within 3 hours of the tsunami, on the Boxing Day 2004, 26 December, 15 warships and 21 aircraft had left harbour by 12 o'clock in the afternoon. We came to know of the tsunami at 9 in the morning, and by 12, 15 ships and 21 aircraft had sailed out with relief material, with medical teams, not only to our affected areas in India, that was Chennai and Port Blair, but as far as Indonesia. And we were the first responders on the scene. The other navies fetched up much later. And then, of course, the rescue mission became much bigger. And that was the start point, I think, of India's, the respect the world has for India and the Indian Navy's role in carrying out search and rescue operations and providing humanitarian assistance and disaster relief.
Dr. Tripathi, how do you look at this exercise, or rather this alacrity, the word that we used by Commodore Singh as well, that India has shown when it comes to these opportunities or challenges, whatever you like to call it?
Thank you so much, Vinayji. You are right in that sense that Indian forces, whether it has been Army or Navy or Air Force, they have shown rigorous strength in terms of defending India's special interest. But at the same time, it has always defended some unexpected, unprecedented incidents that took place across the world. For example, we have seen in Turkey earthquake, we have seen in Syria, the kind of rescue operation had taken place during that time. India had extended its unflinching support, no matter whether it is in India or across the world. First. Second point is that as far as this incident is concerned, so it's good to see the kind of cooperation with India and Oman. Oman Security Center had extensively been promised to Indian authorities, and soon after, Indian government is closing monitoring the situation. After that, India sent its warship and step, and we have successfully rescued at least 8 Indian nationals. So I think this kind of maritime cooperation with India and Oman is very important. And I would like to remind here that on September 2021, India and Oman both signed an MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, for maritime security. So that's the point that this is a time that we should think that this kind of we have bilateral relations in the Middle East. The country like Oman, which has a very strategic importance, strategic role in India's energy security. Let me explain that Oman stands as a gateway of the Strait of Hormuz, as India imports one fifth of its oil from this Strait of Hormuz. So in that backdrop, I can see that in terms of strength, in terms of rescue operation, and in terms of our bilateral relations, the country which is a very crucial in terms of geographical proximity as well as strategic dimension. So I think India's voice is bigger, India's voice is bold, India is much more mature to defend its any kind of calamity, any kind of unprecedented event.
All right. We'll also take concluding thoughts from all our guests since we are reaching the end of our show. Professor Nalapat, sir, we'll begin with you.
That the Indian military has been completely professional, absolutely no question of any revolt or rebellion or the kind of coup that we have seen across the subcontinent and across the wider in this, global south, South America, for example, other parts of Asia, for example. Coups were a very frequent occurrence, and they still are in some countries, especially in Southeast Asia. In India, by contrast, the military has always been a thoroughly professional force, which goes partly to explain its standing. And I would like to say that it's unfortunate that in the early part of our trajectory as an independent country from 1947, there was a lot of distrust of the military. You had, for example, the public snubbing of General Timaya, the army chief, a highly respected, well decorated, very professional soldier. You even had Sam Manekshaw, the hero of the Bangladesh war. I mean, he was under a cloud for quite some time. And I think the cloud was eventually lifted, but it should never have been there in the first place. So I think what the good thing is that as far as at least the last 10 years, if not is concerned, is that the Indian military is recognized what it is, a completely professional force where you can develop the military and where you can deploy the military and the military will carry out its orders. Yeah, a soldier may not like the orders he or she has been given, but they will carry it out. The military has always recognized civilian authority, and I think that is a very important point that distinguishes the Indian military from so many other militaries, especially in the global south, but also in Europe. There's no question about it. I mean, Portugal, for example, or Spain, for example. These are examples of a similar kind of situation in which the military played, unfortunately, a dominating role in politics. So I'd like to say we are unique in that, almost unique. And I think it's, again, a great credit to our military. And it's a great credit to the political leadership for recognizing that merit and for giving the military enough space to operate and build its potential and its capabilities. Vineet.
Ambassador Mukherjee.
Commodore Anil Jai Singh for adding that extra perspective on how extremely dangerous it was to rescue the crew, and with what courage and bravery our armed forces, our navy, went into those treacherous and choppy waters and deployed their resources and rescued them. So I think the country should pay tribute to their courage in doing what they did to rescue their countrymen, and to say that India is very proud of its armed forces and is very proud of its navy. And yes, it is this government for the last 10 years that has done so much to ensure that the Indian Navy gets the resources that it's been asking for a very long time. They were for a very long time they were short of many things, which now are slowly coming in. So that the belated recognition which this government has given, which earlier governments did not give, that India needs an extremely strong navy along with air force and army, because its oceanic reach is as important as its continental force, and that is something which is very important for an emerging power like India. That is something that is extremely important while confronting an aggressive and militaristic China, which is now trying to build its own navy, which has shown in the South China Sea its aggressive postures. But we have shown in turn through our navy that we are as capable of taking them on in the ocean as we are across the line of control beneath.
All right. Commodore Singh?
Doing what it's supposed to do, is doing it very well, and I'm sure it will continue doing it very well.
All right. Concluding thoughts, Dr. Tripathi, and then we'll wrap up. We've completely run out of time, sir.
Yeah. In short, I would like to say that Indian forces have the potential to defend its national interest in terms of calamities. We have seen the kind of operations during inside India, whether the earthquakes or any flood situations, and outside the India. So I'm sure that I'm confident that the kind of Indian government has shown its commitment to modernize the forces, as well as to give a much more space to the Navy as well as the Air Force and armed forces. So I do believe that Indian forces are much more enough to tackle any kind of unforeseen challenges.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.